Hello everybody, how you doing? It's another Rebooking WrestleMania video into two nights from yours truly, Damon's List. Now, I did WrestleMania 17 and it was one of the easiest one I had to do. But it wasn't the one that got me the most excited. This one, for this WrestleMania, got me most excited. Why? Because it's the only WrestleMania in real life that I actually attended. I attended WrestleMania 18. I remember it was a weekend, basically, between college, basically with college classes. I do remember, thankfully, I remember we didn't have any exams. I mean, we went basically to see WrestleMania. Short story, make a short story. We went to see the day before. I think we went to see two movies. Like we were there Friday, Saturday. I think we say basically we seen Resident Evil, and we saw Blade. No, we didn't see Blade 2. It was several weeks later. Sorry, we saw Resident Evil the day before, and the Saturday we went to Toronto, and the next day went to WrestleMania. Maybe that's the reason why I prefer the Resident Evil 1 movie. I think it's the best one. Again, it's not a great movie, but no Resident Evil movie to date has been great. No live action, that is. But as far as WrestleMania, I was excited for Rock Hogan, but I'm a guy who also likes the undercard. I mean, one match to me would make me salivate like Pavlov's dog. You need an entire good card. And I like the IC title match, the European title match, Undertaker vs. Flair, Austin versus All. I was kind of intrigued by this, but I was surprised that Austin would be facing basically the number one henchman of the NWO, where The Rock was fighting the leader of the NWO. Just in status, it felt different. And honestly, Triple H was shoved down our throat. I didn't like that Jericho was being made to look super bad in what's supposed to be the WWE title match. And the Booker T Edge feud over shampoo. Like, there's a lot of wrongs on that show. So, to be quite frankly honest, I would not, or Kurt Angle versus Kane, just because nobody had anything to do. 2 years in a row, you book Kurt Angle in a last minute match, and I would do differently. I respect Kane, one of the best big men ever in the business, but I didn't want him to face Kurt Angle. Now, I would fix WrestleMania 18 to 2 nights, so there's 2 nights, and everybody would be filled, there would be no pre-show match. Which I don't mind if there's no pre-show, but here's the thing with WWE. Don't do a pre-show if there's no match in the pre-show. What's the point? People already know the card. So if you're gonna do this, do like 20 minutes in advance. Hey guys, here you go. Here's the matches. Call it in. Basically, if you want to see it, you're gonna regret if you don't see it. Okay, so what would I do for WrestleMania 18? Before I ask for this, I basically have to recoup. Let's go back to a bit of the summer of 2001. What happened? The Alliance. Basically, Alliance angle, WCW, ECW. And there's a lot of things I would have not done. I mean, it wasn't really a great angle. In fact, it's kind of an angle that really aged like milk. Like Kurt Angle's milk. For example, Booker T lost way too much. He went from WCW champion to basically WCW tag champion to WCW to World Tag Team champions. I would not have him lose kind of his status. He would still be a world caliber athlete. In fact, the moment he wins the world title against Scott Steiner in the last Nitro, I would have made sure he doesn't lose singles or tag until he loses the world title. And he would. He would lose the world title, but he wouldn't lose at SummerSlam. In fact, at SummerSlam, in Rock's first match back, I would have made sure that Booker T wins over The Rock. Rock basically looks like he's going to beat Booker T. Shane tries to interfere, basically, or puts the foot of the Booker T on the ropes after a rock bottom. I don't know. He tries then afterwards tries to trip The Rock. The APA, you have Bradshaw deliver this clothesline from L to Shane McMahon, take him out. But as he's distracted by this, Booker T does this spin-a-Rooney, bookhand, well, spin-a-Rooney, axe kick, followed by the bookhand, 1, 2, 3. Like this, the crowd are really shocked. But after weeks of The Rock saying, "Who the blue hell are you?" to Booker T, it was counterproductive that Booker T lose. It looked like a complete idiot. Looked like a complete idiot. Such a complete idiot that I had trouble saying idiot. Like I was saying, okay, cool. I was saying like a complete farce, like a complete joke. And in this case, you don't. You lose it at Unforgiven 2001. Then maybe Rock loses the title to Chris Jericho, and Jericho loses it back to Booker T. And afterwards, you need to integrate it in a small tournament to unify the champion, whatever. Stone Cold Steve Austin would not lose the WB title once. Once. He would not lose the WB title until Vengeance. And yeah, Jericho winning up unifying those two titles, that's fine. I have no problem with that. So yeah. And at the same time this happened, I would have the ECW title coming around. Rhino would defend like with pride, not being the ECW title picture as often. Like the moment you lose the ECW titles, afterwards, like, hey, remember I'm the EC you lose the hardcore title. When ECW comes back, he defends the ECW title. And you can't even lose it because he gets injured like in October of 2001. So you lose it, you can't even lose it to Taz. Because Raven, I'm not sure about this, but Taz and Raven then have a feud. And yeah, and Test at the same time being betrayed by WWE. He doesn't go to WCW. No, he goes to ECW. So yeah, you could have this. So that's in short parts that could happen. But at the same time, I felt like one thing that WCW, the real reason it didn't help is because I felt like the beat cheapened out. It only brought people that basically, hey, you don't have a huge guaranteed contract, so we're bringing it in. I feel like WWE with the money they got, basically they got WWE at bargains. They could have basically say, hey, wrestler we're staying at home, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, everybody else will double your salary if you come back. How about that? And that's what I would kind of do here. So there might not be basically a huge storyline. I wouldn't make it basically a huge storyline about, hey, everybody's coming back to defend WWE's honor. Not necessarily. There wouldn't basically be a WWE versus WWE feud, as in who's going to be erased, one's going to be erased from history. There will be a match with the WWE versus WWE versus ECW, maybe at a Survivor Series 2001. And even then, I would make sure that none of them gets erased. None of them basically is like, hey, never mind. So, short story short, I would not basically be a WWE conquers all. It's like, no, WWE maybe have won a battle, it didn't conquer all. And what's the point in the end? Basically, it would just integrate any participant of any roster onto their roster. So, anyway, I'll stop babbling about. I would make WrestleMania 18. That was the This was the WrestleMania gonna be the most exciting booking. Why? I'll tell you why. Because WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania 18 Night 1, I know it was William Regal defending against RVD. I keep that part alive. I keep that alive. But I felt like Lance Storm deserved to be fighting for the IC title as well. So I had William Regal defending against Rob Van Dam, who represents himself. You could have basically Lance Storm representing ECW, and you could have who better than Chris Kanyon represent WCW. And as in real life, Rob Van Dam win the IC title. Rob Van Dam. Because in this case, he represents not really WWE, WCW, ECW, he just represents himself. And guys, he was super over. He was immensely over. And I do not want to let this go by the wayside. You have him win the IC title on that night, period. So that's match one, night one. Match two for the European title. You have Diamond Dallas Page, who beat Christian for it, to defend against Booker T. Yes, the World Heavyweight title doesn't exist. The WWE World Heavyweight title doesn't exist anymore. The European title is just basically all similar to a TV title, but I want basically Diamond Dallas Page versus Booker T to remind everybody what WWE can do. And as a part of me feels like I kind of aired onto DDP keeping the title, but knowing DDP is going to retire soon afterwards, why not have Booker T win the European title? I'm just saying that could have happened. Now, the third match of the night, you have the hardcore title shenanigans, and that will not change nothing. You keep the same thing. Maven, Goldust, Spike Dudley, Crash Holly, Al Snow, Hurricane, Molly Holly, Christian, Maven regaining the title by the end. Okay, that's fine. You can also have Raven if you want to there. Now, the fourth match of the card, I would have Kurt Angle, like in real life, but he's not going to face Kane. He's going to face somebody who, quite frankly, somebody basically, Kurt Angle said he was the perfect athlete, and who better to face him at WrestleMania than Mr. Perfect Kurt Angle? And what could be Mr. Perfect slash Ura as a wrestler? You have Mr. Perfect against Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle doesn't kick out the Perfect Plex. He doesn't lose that match because his foot's on the rope. And it takes two Angle Slam for Kurt Angle to win. So it's kind of passing of the torch, but respectfully. Now, what will be the next match? Sorry, just checking my list. Will be there. Okay. Then you would have the World Tag Team title match. Sorry. I just went flashlight to look at my notes. So it would be the same thing as in real life. It'd be Billy Gunn and Billy and Chuck defending and retaining against APA, Dudleys, and the Hardys. Nothing else you added. But the main event of night one will be Stone Cold Steve Austin defending the honor of WWE. Not against Scott Hall. Scott Hall will be used next night. I felt like against the guy who assaulted him after WWE won the three-way elimination tag at Survivor Series 2001. How about Bill Goldberg? Bill Goldberg. Yeah, Steve Austin versus Bill Goldberg at WrestleMania 18. That would be what I would book. But here's the thing, Bill Goldberg will not be there every week. And when he does, he would squash the living hell of the whichever wrestler he is, and usually would be a mid-carder. Like, could be Crash Holly, could be Raven, basically this. So it's kind of, you can't basically be reversed. Instead of being cheered, he's being booed so much that kind of he's fueled by the boos. Because as much as he's cool, as much as he was as a badass around back in the day, it's the fact he's opposing Steve Austin. But he doesn't cower from Steve Austin. He welcomes a challenge. And when there's a brawl, Austin is never get the upper hand on Goldberg. It's always stopped by the referee or the roster or the security. He only appears like 5 times before WrestleMania. He even helps people eliminate Austin from the 2002 Royal Rumble. He doesn't wrestle in the Rumble, but he's there. And it leads to Goldberg, like I said, has to be, if he wins against mid-carders, and because of security, Austin doesn't have really much of a chance of basically interfering until one day he decides, after Goldberg's squash match and there was a security coming in, there's a security member with a mask and basically has his helmet off, as an helmet, and then he takes it off, and you guess it, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. It leads to WrestleMania, and I would have Steve Austin against Goldberg. He would spear him, but unlike in today's age, I would not have everybody kick out anybody's finisher. I wouldn't have everybody kick out everybody's finisher. I wouldn't have Goldberg hit the jackhammer on Stone Cold, because I can't justify with impact in the ferocity of the maneuver. I cannot justify Austin kicking out with this. So to protect that finish, every time he goes for it, I could have basically Stone Cold Steve Austin try. It was the midst of this jackhammer. He rolls away, hits the stunner for the first time to Goldberg. 1, 2, not a near kick out. At first, it's just a 1, 2 kick out. Kick out just 2. Austin is stunned. Later on in the match, he hits a stunner. So he's stunned. Austin is stunned. Basically, he hits a stunner. He goes for a cover. 1, 2. Now it's a near fall. And later on, to finish the match, it would take 2 stunners in a row for him to win. So Austin would need 4 stunners to win the match and win night 1 of WrestleMania. That would be this. Now, second night, there will be 8 matches. First off, I would keep the Cruiserweight title match on the card. I know he wasn't in real life, but I would have Tajiri defending against Hurricane Helms, against Scotty Tuati, and against Kidman. And like in real life, Kidman wins the title. In the second match, I would have for the ECW title, Raven versus Taz versus Test. Taz defends the Test and Raven. Test wins the title, but Wu debuts immediately after the match to make his intentions known and basically his impact known. It's Brock Lesnar. He destroys Raven and destroys Taz, and he lays out Test 2, lifts up the ECW title, which he will win in the next upcoming months before his eventual showdown with The Rock at SummerSlam 2002. Now, I had things planned for the third match, but I noticed Ric Flair wasn't on that card. There's a reason why, because there'll be a returning hero going to WrestleMania. And that person will be Bret the Hitman Hart. Now, I know Bret Hart basically at this point concussion. Basically, you could imagine. Basically, my booking, he didn't have the concussion. He just left WWE in late 2000. He's coming back to WWE, but since he's a bit rusty, you could basically justify him being protected in a tag match. You have Bret Hart in one corner with his partner, the Macho Man Randy Savage, take on Ric Flair and Mr. McMahon. And of course, it could end with basically Bret Hart making Mr. McMahon tap out with the sharpshooter, and Savage is the top rope help to Flair. Because it'd be a callback for two things. All for WrestleMania 8. It'd be basically a callback to WrestleMania 8 with those two, Bret Hart and Randy Savage. I put it to be the baby face who ended up snatching both singles title by the end of the night. 10 years ago, they left WrestleMania with the singles WWE championships. And 10 years ago, Savage and Flair faced off one against the other. So it'd be a call up to that. Now, I know that sounds very, very like, okay, what else can you do? Well, you have the NWO. You would have Scott Hall, X-Pac, and Kevin Nash facing off against Kane, the Big Show, and Rikishi, the biggest guys that we can have. And it's like a six-man brawl. Like, they can't be bullied around. Kane, Rikishi, and Big Show cannot be bullied around. But what happens in the match is Big Show turns heel. I know. He turns heel often. He turns heel so often, basically. More often than NASCAR, basically the NASCAR track. But anyway, this time they'll actually make sense because he was in the NW before, and he joins the NW on that particular event to win. So basically, they would pin Rikishi after basically assisted elevated Razor's Edge, and just for good measure, after the match, Kevin Nash plants him, or sticks him, as he would say, with a jackknife powerbomb. Now, in the fifth match of the evening, I would have Sting face against The Undertaker. Can you imagine how great that would have been? I know it would have been basically American Badass Undertaker, but better than nothing, okay? And it would be a close match, and yes, Undertaker would win, because I felt like Undertaker's streak continues, but at least the 10th, when he reaches 10th opponent, as much as I love Ric Flair in the ring, we've seen Taker versus Flair before. We never saw Taker versus Sting. And I thought that'd be basically a great, unique way to cap off that 10th, that 10th, that benchmark. Basically, that would be a great way to get that benchmark. Now, where are we at now? Oh, yeah. For the WWE title. Yeah, 6th match. And there's 2 other matches after this. It's Chris Jericho versus Triple H. And I know there's arguments, even I could have basically make an argument that Chris Jericho could keep the WWE title there. And Triple H is the king of winning at WrestleMania, and we shouldn't have. However, I already made him lose at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That could play in the storyline that he has a losing streak at WrestleMania, and that makes Chris Jericho so secure, so cocky about this, but then he loses. He loses at WrestleMania. And I feel that's one of the 2 WrestleManias in the history of WrestleMania where Triple H was justified to end up winning the match. That's one of them. You could argue Goldust with Triple H if Goldust wasn't made to look so weak beforehand. But apart from this, from WrestleMania 18, maybe WrestleMania 13 and WrestleMania 35, every other match, and it'll reflect my booking, I don't want Triple H to win because he shouldn't have. And if he's so secure with his legacy, he shouldn't have minded anyway. So, that's all I'm going to say. Jericho lose the title because I felt Triple H should have. In the penultimate match, you have the women's title match with Jazz defending against Trish Stratus against Lita with Jacqueline as special guest referee. Trish wins in her hometown. She wins the women's title in her hometown. That's all I can say about that. And the main event is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. I don't want anything else. Basically, in this case, nothing changes because the entire match plays the same thing, except instead of two rock bottoms in a row, the Rock, just to be sure, it's three rock bottoms in a row before the people's elbow for the 1, 2, 3. And then I felt like the NW would have a reason to attack Hulk Hogan after the match because it'd be like, dude, we won our match. The NWA works. You lost because you still try to be Hulk Hogan taking your vitamins, brother, not Hollywood Hogan. Except in this case, Hogan would then basically be sneak attacked by the NWO. I would pitch his toothpick at Hogan, and Hogan would throw the first punch. But Hogan basically is able to handle, let's say, all an X-Pac, but then Nash interferes and Big Show interferes. This is when the numbers are too big. Then the Rock comes in to help, and they clear the NWO from the ring. And you have Rock and Hogan finish WrestleMania with a pose down. And you have why they do the pose down. Why they do the pose, just the pose. You have Hogan's Real American song come in, and then Hogan leaves the ring, and WrestleMania ends or fades to black as The Rock, to his own entrance music, raises his arm in the corner. And that's how you end it. And I tell you, if you had done that, it could have been the best WrestleMania ever, rather than just one of the best. Anyway, enough rambling on. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Just be civil when you do. And see you later for Rebooking WrestleMania 19. See you later, guys.